The New York Giants have officially fired Brian Daboll in his fourth season with this organization after a 2-8 start to the season, and this is the right move. Before we get into this season, I want to talk about the impact that Brian Daboll had in his first year. The team went 9-7-1. They made the NFL playoffs. No one thought that the Giants were going to go out there and be a playoff threat that season, and he set the tone early on in that year. When he benched Kenny Golladay, he held his players to a different standard than his coaches. He wanted his players to produce as much as possible and to give effort. And Kenny Golladay was a terrible wide receiver in New York. He was a solid wide receiver with the Detroit Lions. In New York, they were looking for a consistent number one. But he couldn't catch a cold in New York. And Brian Daboll came out that season early in the year and he benched Kenny Golladay. And he was making a lot of money at the time. And it set the tone for the rest of the season. They won that game over the Tennessee Titans. They went for 2 with Saquon. He won Coach of the Year that year. You defeat the Minnesota Vikings in a playoff game. Now, granted, the Minnesota Vikings had one of the worst defenses in the NFL at that point in time, but a playoff win is a playoff win regardless. But ever since that season, it was downhill since then. We had a lot of problems going on behind the scenes with the contracts of Daniel Jones and Saquon. They paid Daniel Jones and they franchise tagged Saquon, and they fractured their relationship with this organization long term. And to his credit, he got the most out of Daniel Jones at that point in time. Daniel Jones was not a very successful quarterback with New York up to this point. They declined his fifth-year option. If they were able to go out there and exercise that fifth-year option, they possibly wouldn't have been in that situation to begin with because you would have had an extra year to fully evaluate Daniel Jones. But Joe Schoen comes in, he declines that option. He has his breakout season. Now you have to pick. You give him the contract extension, you franchise tag Saquon, and you will always pay the quarterback over the running back. That's how the NFL works. You'd rather have a solid quarterback on the field than have a great running back. Most teams look at it from this standpoint. The shelf life of the running back position is very short. You build your offensive line, you get a solid running back, you can still have a very good rushing attack, but it's hard to find that consistent quarterback play. Then the next season, Daniel Jones wasn't the same. He tore his ACL, and that was just a nightmare of a year. You went 6-11. You still have Daniel Jones on the hook, by the way. The year after that in 2024, 3-14. Then you move off of Daniel Jones. Now he's with the Indianapolis Colts. He's been a very good quarterback with that organization up to this point. Saquon leaves. He goes to a team in this division, to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they won a Super Bowl last year. Xavier McKinney, he left this roster. He goes over to the Green Bay Packers, becomes one of the best safeties in the NFL. And the reason why I bring this up, Joe Schoen should be fired as well. He has been a terrible general manager. The draft picks have not hit with this organization. When you go back to that first season with Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, they were still working with Dave Gettleman's roster. He selected Xavier McKinney, Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, those impactful players, Daniel Jones, and Saquon. That came from him. And even though Daniel Jones was not a franchise quarterback with the New York Giants, you still won that playoff game with him. You look at the draft selections with Joe Schoen, they haven't been great. Evan Neal is a bust. Kayvon Thibodeau is very disappointing as an edge rusher. He's not a bust, but he hasn't been an elite player at that position for where you selected him in the first round. You had 2 first-round picks to work with. And those guys are not franchise difference makers. Your best draft pick up to this point is Malik Neighbors, and that was a home run hit. And then Jaxson Dart. So Joe Schoen should be fired as well, and I expect for him to be fired after this season. You can't keep him around. When you brought him in, you also brought in Brian Daboll. They're a package duo. But the thing is this with Brian Daboll, he's such a hypocrite. Remember when I said that he held his players to a different standard from his coaches? He was so hard pressed on his players. He had that Bill Belichick mentality because he came from that coaching staff. He was an assistant with the Patriots. He held his players to a standard every single week. Give me all that you have. But you have this terrible defensive coordinator and Shane Bowen, who is horrible. He's been horrendous. That first year, you had Wink Martindale as a defensive coordinator. He blitzed a lot. He made the right adjustments. He found ways to put pressure on the quarterback in creative ways. And he was able to go out there and also stop the run. But that relationship fractured. There's a lot of reports that came out that him and Brian Daboll, they were butting heads a lot. And Brian Daboll came out and he said, that's not true. only for a couple of days later for Wink Martindale to lead this coaching staff, and now he's with Michigan at the college level. And he's doing a very good job being a defensive coach over there. Off a cliff. He's a press man corner, but you're playing this soft zone coverage. He's not a zone corner. And in my opinion, when you're a coach in this league at any level, in any sport, you put your players in the best situations possible. You use them to the best of their ability. So if they're a press man corner, you put them in man cover situations. If he's not a very good zone corner, you take him off the field. But instead of going out there and coaching to your players' strengths, Shane Bowen said, I'll be damned. We're going to play defense the way that I want to play it. You guys better catch on. And if you don't, it is what it is. And that's why this defense has been so bad this season and last season as well, against the run and against the pass this year. With all that talent you have, they're 31st in rushing defense, 22nd in pass defense. And since he didn't want to fire Shane Bowen, he had to go. Brian Daboll's final record with the Giants in 4 years, 20, 40, and 1. You lost to the Dallas Cowboys 40-37. You have Russell Wilson, who gave you one of the best games of his career. And we all know what Russell Wilson is at this stage of his career. He's not the same player, but he was 30 of 41, 450 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. That should be good enough to win you that football game, but you lost in overtime. Bad coaching. It was just a couple of seconds left late in the game, and you're playing off coverage. Your linebackers are 10 yards off the ball. Just go out there and play regular prevent defense. But Shane Bowen didn't do that. He cost him that game. You could say the 1 interception with Russell Wilson. But at the same time, he had the 3 passing touchdowns, 450 passing yards. Against the Denver Broncos, you were up 26-8 in the fourth quarter. You had a lot of miscues on the offensive end late in the game. Drop passes, offensive line breakdowns, but yet Jaxson Dart still had a very good game. You lost this game 33-32. And instead of moving on for Shane Bowen, Brian Daboll cut the kicker. You moved on from the kicker. That's crazy work. He did miss an extra point. Move on from players. But he'll keep trash coaches around. That's the mentality that he has. And since he didn't want to fire Shane Bowen, Merritt came out. He said, you're the reason. Because he's your defensive coach, you allow this to happen. Shane Bowen is easily one of the worst defensive coordinators in the NFL. Another example of a player being benched is Deonte Banks last year. That Steelers game, he got hurdled by Najee Harris Monday Night Football. They put that man in the doghouse for the rest of the season. They benched him. Now, he hasn't played well over the last couple of years. I will give you that. But why don't you have the same standard for your coaches that you have for your players? It just doesn't make sense to me. The one thing with Bill Belichick, he had a lot of flaws. Most people regard him as the greatest coach of all time. He held everyone to the same standard, coaches and players. And when you have that Bill Belichick type of mentality, you have to have that type of mentality. If my player's going to drop a pass in a crucial situation, he gives up on the route. I have to call him out for that. I have to discipline him for that. If my coach is going to go out there and make a dumb decision, I have to do the same. But it's ridiculous for this defense to be this bad with all the talent that you have. With Kayvon Thibodeau, Bobby Okereke, who you brought in free agency from a couple of years ago. He was very impactful with the Indianapolis Colts. He hasn't had that impact with the New York Giants. Dexter Lawrence, one of the best defensive players in the game. You selected Abdul Carter in the first round. In certain situations in that Broncos game, you look on the field and Abdul Carter is in the slot guarding a slot wide receiver. What the hell are we doing? An elite pass rusher at Penn State is in the slot as a cornerback. They put him at middle linebacker against Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders as a spy. You put his hand in the dirt and you let him get to the quarterback. That is the best trait that he has. Maybe later on in his career, you could move him around like how they do with Khalil Mack. But even now with Khalil Mack, he's primarily a pass rusher. You drafted him to be the next TJ Watt, to potentially be the next Michael Parsons, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett. Let him put his hand in the dirt and let him be a great pass rusher. He's been very disappointing as a rookie this year, and it's not all on him. It's mostly because of the coaching staff. The one thing that Joe Schoen has gotten right, you trade a second and a fifth round pick to bring in Brian Burns. He has been phenomenal this season. He's been one of the best pass rushers in the game. And let me be exact here with Burns and the impact that he has made. 11 sacks, that is tied for the most in the NFL, and 2 forced fumbles. He has been elite this season. And Dexter Lawrence, he is special. I can't say enough great things about him. Even though he only has a half a sack on the season, he's easily your best run stopper. And at the trade deadline, you have all this talent in the front seven. You see that you're not going anywhere right now. Malik Neighbors, he's out with an ACL injury. Why not go out there and try to bring in another wide receiver to help out your young quarterback in Jaxson Dart? You do nothing at the trade deadline, and you know for a fact that Brian Daboll is on the hot seat, and you're on the hot seat as well. You could have traded Kayvon Thibodeau elsewhere. Now, I don't think that Kayvon Thibodeau is a bad player. The holding machine, pass interference machine, and he tries his best. I will give that to him. The effort is there. I feel for him. He was a very good player in the secondary at the college level. It hasn't translated over to the NFL. Cordell Flott, he's a very good player. Javon Holland, you sign him in free agency. But it's backwards here. Why not just go out there and give Xavier McKinney that contract and give him the contract extension? Unless he wanted to leave. And from all the reports that I was reading, he wanted to stay with the New York Giants, but he went to the Packers. Saw a better opportunity, and I don't blame him. They were going nowhere fast with Brian Daboll. But in order for this organization to turn everything around, you need to fire Joe Schoen. Relevance in the postseason was with Tom Coughlin being the head coach. But it's not all doom and gloom with the Giants. They'll bring in a brand new coaching staff after this year. Hopefully you get the right coach this time. Hopefully it's no one like Joe Judge. Please, no more Joe Judges, no more Jason Garrett at the offensive coordinator position. I beg you. But when you look at the positives with this roster, Malik Neighbors is a beast. Unfortunately, he went down against the Chargers. But we know that he's one of the most talented. The work he was able to do last year with Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, and he was still a consistent wide receiver. He's a cornerstone of this franchise. Outside of him, you have a lot of question marks at the wide receiving position. Wan'Dale Robinson, he's not a bad player, but at the same time with Wan'Dale Robinson, he isn't his true game changer either. He's more so of a number 3 wide receiver. Darius Slayton, he'll have some good moments. He'll have some bad moments. He had the crazy one-hand catch yesterday over the Chicago Bears, but let's not forget, his hands have always been a question mark in his career. Theo Johnson has played better since Jaxson Dart has been the starting quarterback. He has 5 receiving touchdowns on the season. That's a solid tight end. The offensive line is still a major issue, but you have Andrew Thomas, one of the best tackles in the game. JMS at the center position, he's a solid player. He'll have some good moments. He'll have some bad moments, but you could possibly find a better player at the center position. Joe Runyon, he's more so of a rotational guard, and he's a starter with this team. On pretty much any other team in the NFL, he'll be a second-string offensive lineman. The same with Greg Van Roten. Jermaine, okay right tackle. He's better than Evan Neal. The reason why the offensive line has looked better is because Jaxson Dart has the ability to move around. This offensive line is still the issue. You need to fix this offensive line as soon as possible. But Jaxson Dart is the most important player moving forward. If you are an aspiring head coach in the NFL, this is who you want to work with. He hasn't had a bad game this season. You can say the Saints game, he had the interceptions, he had the fumbles, sure. You can blame that on Jaxson Dart. You had 5 giveaways in that game. But when you take a deeper look at Jaxson Dart, he's trying to overcompensate for the lack of talent. Jaxson Dart has the legs. He has the athleticism to get outside the pocket and to make some special plays. He has 7 rushing touchdowns this season and 10 passing touchdowns to just 3 interceptions, 17 total touchdowns on the year. He has everything that it takes to be a superstar in this league. The accuracy across the middle of the field, throwing the football deep down the field. And he is doing this without Malik Neighbors. He is doing this without Cam Scatterbo, who got injured against the Philadelphia Eagles. He has given this franchise life. And that first game against the Los Angeles Chargers, he gave you something that you haven't had in a very long time, even with Daniel Jones, and that was hope. Elite athleticism. Breaking down the defense within the front 7. Escaping a sack. Making a defender or 2 miss. Now on the back end of your defense, he's breaking you down. He's pointing open wide receivers. Those are just some things that you just can't teach. Against the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the best wins for the Giants in a very long time, Thursday Night Football, and you did that at home. You won that game 34-17. Jaxson Dart was special in that matchup. He's a dual threat quarterback. Against the San Francisco 49ers, he played well yet again, but the defense let him down. He had 3 total touchdowns, 2 in the air, 1 on the ground. And against the Bears yesterday, look at the impact that he has. You were up 17-7. He left with a concussion. And as soon as he left that game, they put in Russell Wilson. I thought that was a major mistake. Russell Wilson is cooked. Why not just go out there and put in Jameis Winston? You know what you have with Russell Wilson. We've seen this against the Commanders. We've seen this against Kansas City. He's just not a good player anymore. He should be out the NFL if we're being honest. Russell Wilson is a very nice guy off the field. Seems like he'll be a great ambassador one day. But in terms of being a starting quarterback on a week-to-week basis, he just doesn't have it anymore. The accuracy has diminished. The athleticism is not there. But you have Jameis Winston, who is a locker room leader. And say what you want to say about the interceptions with Jameis Winston. At least teams are going to fear the deep passes with him. He's going to make them respect the deep ball. You run the football in that game. You work off of play action. And you just minimalize some of the mistakes with Jameis Winston. After all, Brian Daboll's a quarterback guru, right? He's the same guy that worked with Josh Allen, offensive coordinator with the Buffalo Bills. So many people gave him so much credit for that. So you just can't go out there and you can't work with someone like Jameis Winston? But instead, you put in Russell Wilson. And since you didn't trust your quarterback, instead of going forward on 4th and 1 on the 1-yard line, he kicks the field goal. You would rather kick the field goal instead of going for it with a quarterback that you brought in, a quarterback that you wanted in Russell Wilson. Imagine if Jaxson Dart was not there in the first round. Imagine if another team had selected Jaxson Dart and Russell Wilson was a starting quarterback with the New York Giants this season. They would have possibly fired this man after week 3. So Jaxson Dart tried to save this man's career, but it wasn't enough. And it does suck to see someone lose their job. But he's made too many mistakes with the New York Giants. They need a complete rebuild with the coaching staff and the front office. Bring in a brand new general manager, bring in a brand new coaching staff. But the future could be bright with names like Jaxson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, Malik Neighbors. Unfortunately, Jalen Hyatt, I don't put him in that conversation. He hasn't caught on as a player. Another Joe Shane pick, by the way. And you have Andrew Thomas. The division is tough. But the NFL is week to week, is year to year. You look at Washington Commanders last year, went to the NFC Championship game. Look at them now. A lot of injuries. But they're not the same team. The Dallas Cowboys, offensively, they've looked very good this year. But defensively, they have a lot of problems. And I don't trust Jerry Jones long term. Look at what he's done to his organization over the last 10 to 15 years. Then you have the Philadelphia Eagles. They're one of the best organizations in the NFL for a very long time for a reason. Their front office is elite, and they know when to move off of coaches. But it comes down to ownership and the rest of the pieces. I want to see the New York Giants be good. You have something special in Jaxson Dart. But it was very unfortunate and very disappointing that you lost this game yesterday against the Bears. You look at Jaxson Dart. He was outplaying Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams was playing very well. But those wide receivers could not catch the football yesterday. You have to take advantage. You have to find a way to win those games. And I look at it from where the ownership comes from. You said that you didn't have your quarterback in Daniel Jones. You didn't select him. But at the same time, you extended him anyway. Our best offensive player left. He went to a division rival with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he just won a Super Bowl. When you go back to the HBO Max series, Hard Knocks, Mara came out to Joe Shane, and he said, hey, if Saquon leaves, I will be sick. Hopefully he doesn't go to a division rival. 5 minutes later, they look on the TV, and they see that Saquon is signed with the Philadelphia Eagles, and Mara just shakes his head. He just walks off. You could tell that he was pissed off. And Joe Shane, we'll be okay. Let's go out there and let's bring in Devin Singletary, guys. A cheap running back. We can't pay our quarterback and our running back. We're paying our quarterback so much money just for him to hand the football off. Yes, because it's Daniel Jones. Even with the Colts right now, Shane Steichen understands this man can't carry our offense. No matter how much he's getting paid right now, he's not going to be our main engine. We have to hand the football off. And you can say, well, they offered Saquon a contract. It was not of market value. They lowballed that man, and this is what you get out of it. But Brian Daboll is just the first piece to fall down. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to lose games. Over the next couple of weeks, he may just say, you know what, Joe Shane, you're not finishing out the season. We're going to move on from you. We just saw Miami fire their general manager. And they kept their head coach. But hopefully Mike Kafka can give them something. The defense will look better. We'll see what happens. But let me know in the comment section below how you feel about the New York Giants moving on from Brian Daboll at the midseason point. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.